Welcome to 151st webinar of the series called Rethinking City. We've been running for the last 5 years. I myself is very impressed. You won't believe me that A, we are doing it for the last 5 years. B, that we've reached 151st, and we still continue. And I think I made a commitment just other day saying minimum 200 we will do. So I think I'm very glad that this one is on Rourkela, and we're looking at cities of Odisha. And Preeti has given a very interesting name to this. He said, building a future-ready ecosystem. It's wonderful. I think I'm going to talk about cities, talking about being ready for the future. Someone was telling me yesterday that our cities are not ready even for the past. You're talking about future. So it's a great ambition. I'm very glad. Now, what I'm going to do today is this: that first thing I'm going to do is to thank all of you with name. The reason I want to do it today is this: that at least there are three titles that I read. I don't even understand what they mean, the organization that they're there. So I thought while introducing and thanking them, I'll request them to tell me what they're doing. And to me, that means they're also telling, I think, those who are listening to this. So first, obviously, my grateful and heartful thanks to Preeti ji, because without her, this series would not have been possible. She put in enormous amount of effort. And we've been working on this for quite some time, for about 6, 7 months. And and not only she put in time and putting it together, she also has been moderating it, very competently. So first, and I know her, therefore I'm not going to ask about what her organization means, but the others I'm going to ask what does it mean. So first is Anushree Das. Thank you very much for joining. But Anushree ji, you are your organization is called ADiBha She Vision. I was just wondering whether there is a typographical error or something. What is it? What does it do? What does ADiBha mean?
Yeah, thank you, Kirtiji, for such a lovely introduction. I always love the introduction when it comes with a question because it opens up boundaries.
So tell
Uh,
me, yeah, what is ADiBha She?
yeah, so I will break this down to three parts. There is ADiBha, there is she, then there is vision. So I believe we don't have to explain the last two part
Yeah.
because she is self-explanatory. 50% of the population, 50% of the decision making, again, quote unquote. And vision because all of us present over here are working towards a vision. So I'll definitely explain ADiBha. I am coming from a hardcore corporate background. I have around 12 plus years of corporate experience with me. And after that, when there was an inner call that I want to do something, I want to give it back to society, I want to come back from the concrete wall, and I want to walk with the human capital, I want to work for communities, my people. Then I came back to Odisha. And since I'm born and brought up in Rourkela, I thought, let this be my karma khetra. Okay, so and I always believe if you are starting something, you have to give your heart and soul to that particular thing. And what can be better uh, than giving it your name? So ADiBha actually is containing my family name. From Anushree A, my dad names is Dilip. From there, we took DI, and my mom is Harti. So BHA came from there. So we club it together, make it ADiBha. And since we're working for women and child, our vision is very clear. So we make it ADiBha She vision. As I said, I always believe that if you're doing something, you have to do it wholeheartedly. And I believe if your family name is there, their initials are there, then there is no way that you can give 100, I mean, less than 100%. Rather, you will give 200%. So that's how the name came into picture. Coming to what uh, we do something for the society, which I believe every citizen is supposed to do. We work for equality. We work for equity. I am a gender justice and policy advocate. We are working at the intersection of gender justice, women empowerment, policy, then health and education. So these are our focus areas. We are working with the communities, rural and tribal community. I'm sure you must be knowing in Odisha, we have many tribal communities whose voice are unheard. So we are somehow trying to be voice for them. And other than that, of course, we have many focus areas like menstrual health and hygiene has been our focus area. We work on women's education, then, of course, gender-based violence. So this is a nutshell in what we do. So I believe the way I consider me and my organization is the squirrels that squirrel which helped in making the Ram Setu. So we are just doing that part for the society.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's
I'm sure. I think, Anushree ji, you would think that I'm really very clever in the sense that, I think with the introduction, I got you to understand, I think, where you come from, what is. So thank you very much. Thank you, Siddharth Bhai, Siddharth Thyagarajan, easier senior program manager, WRI, and know WRI very well. So I don't want an introduction from you, but thank you very much for being here. My third thing is Ashutosh Nayak ji, is the Chief Executive Officer. Wanted to ask this question. Coil Fresh Private Limited. So can you tell me what is this Coil Fresh Private? Coil Fresh. Coil I know is a river, but what is Coil Fresh? What is that?
He's not online, Katie.
Okay, fine. Okay, that's fine. We'll do that. Abdul Kalam Azad Saab, can I ask you, do people ask question about history, about India's independence struggle, or what have you?
Yeah. Hello.
Gee, do people ask question? Your name, Abdul Kalam Azad. Do people ask question about, when you hit upon student, do they ask question of history?
Yeah, but nowadays people have forgotten history and people have forgotten Abul Kalam Azad.
No, how can you?
Very few people have remembered Abul Kalam Azad and his role in the Indian history.
But I'm glad you were there to remind them. You reminded me today, I think, of his contributions. Thank you very much. And then, of course, Ananya ji, Paul. Ananya ji, also, I have a question. You say sports, college, design, private limited. I said sports, college, design. ये है क्या भाई साहब बताइए प्लीज.
Good evening, sir. So I work for a firm called Collage Design Private Limited, and we basically work around sports infrastructure, like consulting for sports, large-scale sports infrastructure that is being built across the country, and there is no good reason why it is named Collage, and people do get confused with collage and college, so that's also.
Yes. So thank you. So thank you very much for this wonderful team here. And thank you very much, Preeti ji, for getting it together. What I wanted to say very quickly, I'm not going to take much time because I've decided to take time on this introduction. I just wanted to say two things. One is this, this Preeti ji is coming in here. I mentioned that we have been doing this webinar series for last 5 years, and this is 151st. Largely, we've been dealing with larger issues of governance and planning and design and finance. And when you deal with this thing, you essentially get involved and really get tapped into kind of macro issues and looking at the whole thing. One of the advantages of going down specifically to cities is that you can really get entangle into the lives of those cities and people. And that has helped. And I think this is our third webinar on this particular theme that Preeti has put together. Where the first one obviously was broad, it was context setting. We were looking at Odisha's urban vision and all that. But the next one was on Puri. And we got tremendous insight and understanding and explanations and information on Puri. And today is Rourkela. So I'm very glad that we are really opening a whole new chapter in terms of how do we deal with this whole aspect of looking at cities. The whole. So that's it. And let me kind of just take 2 more minutes to tell you why we have been doing this webinar series. I normally kind of take a long time to tell, but I think I'm going to be very brief today. We started this webinar series 5 years ago with an understanding that India's urban challenge is very vast, very difficult, very complex. And sometimes in order to emphasize my point, I say and irritate people by saying that India's urban challenge is more complex than the climate challenge. It's not that I believe in that. I really believe that, I think urban challenge in the context of India is right on our hands. We're talking about 870 million people living in cities in another 24, 25 years. And it's mind-blowing to think it as how we're going to accommodate them. It's almost doubling of the population. How are we going to house them and how are we going to feed them and how are we going to kind of employ them and all that sort of thing. It's a huge challenge. Second thing we go on saying is that it's not only difficult challenge, but the manner in which we are dealing with it does not give much confidence that we are ready to deal with it appropriately. That's the second worry. The third thing that comes to mind is this, that we cannot leave government, this entire thing to government alone to handle. It's just too complex, too difficult to be handled by government alone. And fourth thing is that this particular thing is going to demand large number of innovations and new ideas and new ways of doing things and new paradigms and new perspectives. And if you want to do that, you also have to look at the new actors. And I believe that we have a large number of people outside the governmental system in business, in industries, in civil society, among professionals who have ideas and want to contribute. And we believe that, in order to deal with, India's urban challenge, what we require is a very deep working societal partnership. We require all these elements, all these ingredients, all this, parts of society get together to deal with the whole issue of urban challenge. And this webinar series we are running for the last 5 years, I believe in all humility, is an effort in that direction. We're trying to build a societal partnership. This is a small contribution, small part of it. It requires much more. This is our capacity, and we are doing it. People say this is the first time ever that anyone has tried to put 450 times India's urban issue in the public domain. That's happened first time ever, and I'm very happy and very proud of saying and hearing that. But so that is the whole idea. And that is the ambition we have when we listen to you, what is your Rourkela like? What kind of issues? In fact, I was looking at Google, and I really found out many things. I'm not going to talk about this maybe at the end, but we would want you to kind of share your experiences, your understanding, your learning, your perspectives, so that our overall understanding of everyone improves into how we do deal with our urban challenges. So with that sort of a longish introduction, I hand over to Preeti ji to take this session ahead. Thank you very much, Preeti ji, and thank you very much once again for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Kirti ji. I think while you were kind of taking us through the journey of how the conceptualization of this entire webinar had happened, we took a really expert kind of opinions to understand, even when we are thinking about Odisha's urban vision, what are the cities that we would primarily pick up? Like Kirti ji mentioned, Puri came up very intrinsically because it had to do with heritage. It had an entire economy designed, and we were seeing a lot of urban influx in that. Whereas Rourkela is interesting. So between choosing for a Rourkela versus a Sambalpur, there was a lot of kind of understanding why a Rourkela versus, because if you're trying to primarily position it from the Western Odisha perspective, how different could a Rourkela be versus that of a Sambalpur? And my core take on that was that, Rourkela has this tag of being an industrial city, one of the first since 1950s. It has seen industrialization, and the entire economy has been based around that, heavy into mining, iron ore. And it's also something people who have lived in Orissa would also know that uh, essentially the people who grow up in Rourkela are different. And Anushree is going to kind of validate that, saying that the moment you see someone eloquent, you see someone very aware about the situation, because a lot of people grew up in townships, industrial township within Rourkela city. But it's not within Rourkela. You see that Rourkela also, as an urban agglomerate, kinds of brings together close to 500,000 population, which is from the peripheries of different parts of Sundargarh. And that was one of the reasons of choosing that, how an old industrial city today is looking forward in terms of creating, curating more of sports infrastructure and an economy around it. And that's why we have Ananya on the call, who is a sports expert, and we are seeing the transition into how the shift in economy is largely kind of identified in the city today. And we have Siddharth from WRI, and we know for sure that WRI has been a vehement organization in terms of positioning a lot of urban learning and practices, and they have done commendable work in Rourkela with their nurturing neighborhood challenges, work with the governments out there, understood the governance. And then we have Azad sir. He's somebody who has actually seen the in and out corridors of Rourkela in the truest form, from working with tribal population, which is also a differentiator from the Sundargarh district. We have seen that how India's most of the hockey players actually come from the district of Sundargarh, and how the entire tribal population has evolved with their traditional patterns of livelihood, what has been their relationship with the community networks. This is something which Azad sir brings into the table. So today's session is kind of divided into two-pronged approach. It looks at, in the first session, we are trying to look at what are some of the challenges. Like, there is an aspirational state that the current government called it out, that is Odisha Urban Vision, which came out last year in June. And it called out differential kind of positioning within where the government is prioritizing. And there is also some of the city's own challenges with the infrastructure, with the governance pattern, and how they're going to address these to become future ready. So these were some of the direction that we will take. And in the second part, we will try to deep dive into understanding through your work, how you can talk to us about what should be like a vision for Rourkela in the truest sense from an urban lens, because even the government positioned like at least 40% of urbanization has to happen. That has to influence the economy of the area. That has to impact how infrastructures are created in the space. So I will start off with our first panelist, Azad sir, and try to bring in a little people's lens into it. Because Azad sir has been working with tribals, with young children, women on differential issues from accessing housing, education, health, and social protection. And he has seen how industrialization has impacted Sundargarh and largely Rourkela as a destination. Sir, I would want to hear from you that how can Rourkela's urban vision try to factor in more of inclusion from that perspective and see more of that. Azad sir?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. See, I am not an urban man. See, I don't have much professional experience on urban development. See, but I have been working in Sundargarh for the last 29 years. Around Rourkela, there are in the different block area with different tribal population. I've been working. We are working mainly on the child right and food and nutrition security. And I thought, see, I can share something. As my people are our people from the peripheral around 100 villages, they have a deep relationship with the Rourkela town. Rourkela town, which has a civil township and a steel township. It is a steel township area that is planned by the Germans in very good planning, and there are also government area. See, but here, as I have seen in the last 29 years, with the growing urbanization, industrialization, development due to different resources, the marginalization has also increased severely. In the periphery area, you will see people will focus more on the development, but there are areas which is overlooked always. So I will give you 3 or 4 examples from where you can understand the marginalization, how this brings marginalization. See, one thing is that you will see daily there are around thousands of vegetable sellers. They are coming from the peripheral areas of the Rourkela town, around 100 villages, to the Rourkela, and they are serving the urban population. They are giving service. If they will not come to Rourkela town, the cost of price of the Rourkela vegetable will go very, very high. Because of the local production around the Rourkela area, the cost has decreased. And the problem is that thousands of women are coming, but those who are big sellers, those who has more produce, they come with their vehicles in groups and they sell and they return back. But large number of women who are small sellers, those who sell forest produces and small vegetables, they all stay, they sell till late night, and they all thousands of women with their small babies, they sleep in the platform, they sleep in the bus stand, they sleep before the around the streets in front of the closed shop. See, there are as a human being, they do not even, these women and children, they do not even given the basic human facilities for them. And we are so telling us as a in government level everywhere telling we are the smart city. We have invested crores of rupees in making the city smart, but there is no concept, there is no thinking about these people, and they are all marginalized people and tribal people. Second thing is that in the last few years, you will see the number of platform children, the number of street children are increasing very high, very high, very high. You will see all the villages, the villages in the both side of the railway track from Kharagpur to Bilaspur. When the family breaks, when the family gets marginalized, when the family disturbs, all those children are coming to the platform for their survival. They come, they spend some time and they die. And their death is also not recorded. How much children came, how much died, where they died, how they died is all unrecorded. When I spend some time with the children, those children, few children tell them, Papa, वो जा रहा था, गिर गया, हम लोग देखे मर गया, तो पुलिस आया, उसको उठाया, गड्ढे में डाल दिया, पेट्रोल डाल दिया, माचिस मार दिया, बस रिकॉर्ड खत्म हो गया. अच्छा, these children are all subject to these drugs use, like they call it the solution they use for cycle repair, for patching the tubes, they all use those dendrite. They all use those solutions, almost all, and they die at the very early stage. And large number of people. See, the urban city, the smart city, doesn't have any provision, any budget, any vision to address these children and to address those women. So third thing you come. I'm giving you some examples. The third thing comes in the last some 2017-18 to 2026. In the last 7-8 years, I have rescued more than 300 newborn baby abandoned in jhadis, dustbin, and the platforms area. I have rescued, and when
300. 300.
Yeah, see, three more, and when then I started campaign in the villages around in 200-300 villages. They don't kill the baby. Either you call us or you give us. So, and I try to motivate those unwed mothers and those sexually abused girls through different ways. And so after this, in the last 3 years, the baby killing have almost they have decreased, and they are now bringing and surrendering. So earlier they were abandoning, and now they were surrendering. So because of the new the small girls, see, because the large number of laborers come from outside, from Bihar, different area, they stay in the slums, and in the mining area around the Rourkela, they stay with the village in rent, and they make friendship with our small girls around 14 year, 15 year, and when the girls get pregnant, they go away. So these girls, they do not have any record of those persons. So sexual abuse has been because of the migration from outside in the lower class, and also the large number of small girls are going to Delhi and different places. The sexual abuse has been increased, and the number of child abandonment and child surrender has been increased. See, Rourkela, we have now the highest number of babies, newborn babies in the country. Today we have 30 babies in our home. We have 30 babies. See, normally the government has the capacity to keep 10 babies, and that is with a very low budget. But because of personal effort, because unless we bring them, they'll die. So because of our personal effort, no, these numbers have. Similarly, the missing children, runaway children, abandoned children, even at the higher stage, the abandoned children number is also very high. But the entire urban vision, the government policy, and these they do not have any provision, any vision for this section of the people, neither budgetary provision nor social provision, nothing. It is all left to the personal effort of the citizen. But see, these large number of people and such a critical stage, you cannot leave them to the hands of the private care, some personal care as per their own capacity. Even the Rourkela steel plant is a big plant. They have huge amount as a CSR fund. They use CSR fund in Lucknow for medical camps. But here, thousands of children and babies are dying. They have strong cases of anemia, malnutrition. If you go to a block near Rourkela, Lohnipada block, if you go, it is a mining area. It is a mining area of SAIL. It is a mining area of OMC. It is now Adani is mining there. See, if you see the women, hundreds of village women, they almost 90% women are anemic and children are malnourished. You see the condition, even the hemoglobin level is around 6 or 7 during pregnancy. We have tested it, we have recorded everything. So you see, and everybody is seeing the Rourkela. So Rourkela is growing, so entire human society is growing. So it is not the end, because the peripheral population, they sub people of Rourkela, they give benefit to the people of Rourkela. These urban services, because the tribal women are coming to sell vegetables, they give space. They give space to seat them for their society member. but they don't arrange for their toilets, drinking water, shelter home. Even if government has, for the namesake, have started some shelter home, but nobody goes there. There is not safe for the women. It is not safe for the girls. So you can see that's why I give few examples of women and children only, and street children, platform children. This is the large, around 90% of the children in the country, 19% children are unsafe and difficult condition. But these, and in the urban areas, in the slums, see, many POXO cases daily. We have Sakhi Center, and almost all our 10 beds are filled with POXO cases. POXO means is a prevention of children from sexual abuse cases. So you see, but these sections are highly neglected in the entire policy of urban development. That's why a large section of the community who are marginalized, excluded, they suffer severely on inhuman suffering. Mother throwing their child on the dustbin. That means it is a severe pain for the both. It is a pain for the both mother and the children. It is not that mother are not throwing child very happily. They have severe pain. They will go to the house, they will go to the village, people will kick them, kill them, beat them. See, in Kuarmunda, there is a blog, one girl gave birth a baby. And out after giving birth the baby, out of fear, she took the baby and put in the western pot and moved this place. You see, she's so scared that to kill the baby immediately, she thought, I'll move the flesh so the baby will go away. But the baby will not go away. Baby will cut into pieces. So these are the severe things. It is the urban population do not know, almost all 99% of the urban people, middle class people, higher middle class people, they do not know anything about the socially marginalized people. They are happy with their job, they are happy with their money, they see the path, they see the good hospital, good roads, but that is nothing to do with these poor people. And there are, see, Rourkela has one corporation, 1744 villages. This Sundargarh Disha has one corporation, 3 municipalities, and 1744 villages. Only corporation is growing. Inside corporation, there are large number of slums. Daily people are coming, slum area is increasing, or unused places are taken by the slum people. They are living in a very uneven condition, but people are severely affected. So these are the few things I wanted to share with you, so that the policy maker can think on this and put their thought to bring changes in these lives. So, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Azad sir, and thanks you for bringing in some of the lenses, because rightfully, like you said, when we think about Rourkela, it is not one city perspective. It is a place-based kind of understanding where you're talking about different municipalities, you're talking about the villages around it that is contributing to the flow of population into the Rourkela town. And that is also split into two parts. One is the industrial township, which is so well defined, has a German urban planning to it. Best of facilities are provided. And then there is the other part of city, which has some of the population that you talked about living, coming into the urban settlements, and also kind of for most of the attendees out here, Rourkela is also kind of known for trafficking issues. So it's also one of the recorded destination. The migration pattern intrastate and interstate is also high. The way Azad sir was calling that out, and some of the ways, because very rightfully when he said that a lot of our Indian cities today don't really have a very inclusive factorization when you're talking about some of the vulnerable cohorts as children. And that is the reason the idea was also to bring somebody like Anushree and Siddharth into the conversation and really see that how some of these learnings are coming together. I will shift my questions to Anushree right now, and I will try to say, because her work has extensively been in and around with children and women, and she's also somebody who has been across in policy corridors, sitting out of Bhubaneswar in several platforms and voicing out some of these concerns. So as a localite from Rourkela, can you please help us understanding how would a gender responsive Rourkela look like in practical sense? And while we can say that women are some of the cohorts and beneficiaries of the urban program, how do we kind of blend some of these questions that has been raised by Azad sir? And I think Anushree, with her plethora of experience, brings a lot of learning into this understanding. Anushree?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Technology got its own glitch, when I hear this thing like gender sensitivity or diversity, long before diversity became a policy, Rourkela actually practiced it. That is the city I know of. But today, when I walk on the ground, on the grassroots, I see completely different reality. I see a city where development has not reached everyone equally. A city where planned neighborhoods exist alongside underserved settlements. A city where opportunities are abundant, but the access is absolutely unequal. So, this is not the city which I was born or brought up. So, uh, when we talk about gender sensitive city or urban development, I think it percolates to only one question that uh, does Rourkela feel the same to everyone? Or more specifically, does a woman experience the city the same way a man does? I don't believe she does. Because the same road, I think Azad ji will also vouch for the same road means different things to different people. For a young man, it may simply be way back home. But for a teenage girl in Rourkela, uh, it may be a route she mentally maps for street lights, for crowded areas, and a safe shortcuts. The same bus stop, the same market, the same park, because Rourkela has already always been known for its greenery, its parks around, and the same workplace, but it's a completely different experience for both the gender. That is why gender sensitive urban planning is not about creating separate cities for women. It is about creating cities where gender no longer determines freedom. As someone who has spent years working with adolescent girls across Odisha through my organization, I have learned uh, one simple thing, and which is very important, that our girls rarely dream small. Their world becomes small because the spaces around them become smaller. A girl begins limiting herself long before anyone explicitly tell her to. She avoids going to evening tuition because the road feels unsafe. She skips sports because there is no accessible playgrounds or changing facility. She misses school because there is no clean toilets or no clean menstrual hygiene practices or facilities. She turns down opportunities because urban transport is unreadable. And eventually, she starts believing those compromises are normal. But I believe those are not normal. They are failures of our public system. Uh, I'll just bring a perspective over here. When we talk about mobility, we are not only talking about transport, we are talking about freedom for our girls and women. When we talk about sanitation, we are not only talking about toilets, we are talking about dignity. When we talk about public spaces, we are not talking about parks or safe roads. We are talking about belonging. And when we talk about women's leadership, which another thing I think as a smart city like Rourkela definitely should look up to, When we talk about women's leadership, we are not only talking about representation, we are talking about who gets to shape the future of the city. And unfortunately, uh, women are often invited into urban conversations only after cities have already been designed. And we ask women to adapt to system they never helped create. Um, Imagine uh, if city planning meetings include adolescent girls. Imagine if women street vendors helped redesigning the vending zones or the marketplaces. Imagine if women with disabilities audited public infrastructure. And I believe what we are missing is the lived experiences, because lived experiences is also expertise, which we are completely missing out. And inclusive governance begins by recognizing that people most affected by public system must help to design them or to restructure them. And what I feel is a city like Rourkela cannot claim to be future ready if half of its population still has to negotiate about safety, mobility, and opportunities every single day. Because mostly, if we see, we design city and we measure it that how comfortable it is for the strongest citizens who are in the power corridors or who are influential people. So we design city taking their perspective into picture, but it should be other way around. It should be measured by how confidently a girl can walk through it. So I think that is how we need to think, we need to redesign, and that is how I think a gender responsive Rourkela uh, can be in practical terms, where people can think of not creating something extra for women, but just a safe space for women and see it differently, where every woman, every girl, whether she is from the local community, whether she is from the migrant community, doesn't have to think twice before stepping out of our home. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Anushree, for tying it back so beautifully to how Azad sir had placed how a lot of our children, adolescent, and women are really co- um, affected by a lot of these transitions and development process and not really included in it. And so beautifully you curated that understanding that for the same set of people who enter into the city, you could still make them a participant to the urban planning and design. And that is the beauty of Rourkela, that there are two shades. Like with every city, there are two shades. One is the imagination of the urban world, and one is the real world in which some of this transitioning doesn't come together. And that is what we are thinking, that our aspiration to build future ready city is stuck in those two corridors, because none of these realities are talking to each other. And it's very high time that it's the lived experiences, as you rightfully said, should be kind of more inclusive. With this, I will also move into Siddharth and ask him, because Siddharth and his team has been working in Rourkela on some of what you called out in terms of designing neighborhoods in a certain way or designing the city in a certain perspective. And Siddharth, I would just be more excited to hear some the elements of data and participatory planning, because what we are saying that there is a cohort of population entirely within Rourkela which is not represented in the urban lenses. And how do we kind of bring them into, and how has some of your works been instrumental in driving the conversation? And just before Siddharth steps in, the reason why the curation of the panelists has less of urban professional and more of citizen voices is because we want to hear what are the real realities before we step into an urban aspirational state of the city.
Thanks a lot, Preeti. To begin with, I'd just like to say that I definitely, I see a lot of agreement and concurrence with what, Azad sir and, our other fellow panelist, Anushree, has had to share. The only one thing that I see that I would differ is that I'm not somebody from Rourkela. I have worked here, but while I bring an urban planner's perspective, I might also bring in an outsider's perspective to the conversation.
Yeah.
Um, as far as data and participatory planning goes, right? As Anushree had also mentioned, right, that Rourkela presents this kind of a duality where it there is this aspect of a very planned city, but it coexists with areas which are informal or informal settlements or vulnerable. The city currently, has a total of, 132 informal settlements. And, these areas are typically those, which have limited access to services, also limited access to, good public spaces and also are, most vulnerable to climate extremes. Now, why this becomes, the idea of, data becomes very, very important when you look at, planning in a city like Rourkela is. Um, Even when the entire, the smart city initiative came into Rourkela and, it was all about, how we can access a lot of, bring in a lot of data, which can start informing the future planning of the city. What we've kind of understood is that, the city level, statistics that, are often presented to us, they give you a very overall picture, right? And often, you cannot, it doesn't really give you, it kind of masks, the gaps that exist at the neighborhood level. So, that disaggregated data, to help you really understand, that what are those areas of the city which typically, require those kind of interventions. That is, the kind of disaggregated data. That is the kind of information that the city needs uh, to see, where the risk actually concentrates and, who is really bearing that kind of a risk. The second thing is also, that when you start layering this data with socioeconomic data, so a lot of the data that Azad sir brought in is this specific socioeconomic data, but when you overlap it, with risk or a hazard data, it presents you with an altogether different story. So I think in that aspect, data really, really becomes important. Um, Now, you also spoke about participatory planning, and Anushree very correctly mentioned, right, that having people's lived realities becoming a part of the entire planning and development process is pivotal. Um, you know, we've often seen that people's narratives are often they're dismissed as very anecdotal or trivial. But one thing that our work has taught us is that quantitative data can only tell you what happens. But if you really need to know why it happens, then you need to start looking into the qualitative data, right? So, and that's where, all these lived realities come into the picture. So, par- the idea of participation, one, it allows for people to actually engage with the system, but also present them with, what their on-ground challenges are, with respect to, accessing a particular service or an infrastructure. And finally, I would just like to say is that, that data and participation, it also ensures that your money really goes where it is needed the most, right? Because ultimately, if you have data-backed prioritization, then you can ensure that, the city's investments they go towards, largely addressing the inequities. Um, if I would draw some examples from our own work through the Nurturing Neighborhoods program, when, of course, it, you know, at that point of time, there was a lot of interest, when it started because, it was something that was under the Smart Cities program and, Rourkela really jumped at it. But even when, we were to, undertake these projects, the first task that we did was we conducted a city level vulnerability assessment. to really understand, which areas of these cities are most underserved. So if you're talking about um, creating public spaces for young children and their caregivers, which could be women, which could be men, which could be their grandparents, uh, we would first like to understand that which of those areas of the city have the least amount of access to public spaces, right? So where do for example, where are they the most limited? And then overlying or overlapping it with another layer of where is access the most challenging, or for example, are there other layers of socioeconomic vulnerabilities that exist? And we chose some of these sites as pilots, right? So one of our projects was an inclusive park in a leprosy colony, uh, where we understood that the public space itself was a challenge, but there were other social issues which were plaguing that entire community and preventing people from actually using and accessing and using the space. So it was it wasn't an easy task, but one thing we can definitely say is that our intervention was definitely able to blur the physical and social boundaries that existed within that communities. We also, worked a lot on, improving Anganwadis and health centers, particularly in low-income settlements, because we understood that, especially for, women's participation, within the workforce, we needed to ensure that at least childcare services in those areas were, something that were prioritized. So, just largely, I mean, ultimately, what I'd like to say is that Rourkela is, understood as an industrial city, as you had mentioned, but ultimately, it's people who keep these industries and economies thriving, right? It's families which keep them going, and unless you don't have their participation, within the urban planning processes, then this idea of an inclusive model of development that we're talking about will just be a missed opportunity.
Yeah, rightfully so that I think, the part of Rourkela being progressive at a certain phase of its lifetime has been because of its positioning around industrialization and Rourkela steel plant. And that has got a lot of buffers and opportunities for the people living. But it has also kind of created more gaps and barriers in the cities, and which has to be addressed if Rourkela takes a more progressive kind of strength. So it cannot rest itself only on industrial township. And industrial township in itself has also brought about, Rourkela is also one of the few cities in Odisha which is part of the NCAP, the air pollution, which has also become like a larger chunk of the problem in the city today. So with this, I also kind of will also shift a bit to Ananya. And I think Ananya brings in a little more greater flavor to the conversation, because Rourkela is slowly moving away just for its industrial tagline into more kind of looking itself as a sports hub. And a lot of our global cities, name it to London, Seoul, Barcelona, even Melbourne, have been primarily driving economies around sports infrastructure. And Rourkela has the potential of becoming one of the, like I said, one of uh, India's most primary introductions of hockey players has come from the Sundargarh district. Ananya, I would like to kind of hear some of your thoughts in terms of, right now I know a lot of sports infrastructure have been developed, and it has also hosted the Hockey World Cup. But primarily from your understanding and your work globally, would love to hear how this can be like a differentiator for a city to make the shift and really look into more of progressive planning in future.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the question, Preeti. Um, so, um, like the company that I'm working for, we were the ones we were the consultants for the international hockey stadium in Rourkela. And it was built like super quick within a period of 15 months. The designing was done, the contractor was onboarded, and the stadium was built in a period of 9 months, which is, I mean, it's definitely a genuine achievement. But what happened in this process was that we pushed away the we'll figure it out later philosophy of for the legacy planning, right? So so that's, I mean, that is one of the biggest challenges of these large scale infrastructure that are being built across the world. But however, there has been a massive shift in the way people think for large scale infrastructure. Similarly, for the other works that we are doing across the country, that is, how do we make this a more sustainable and a like a planned infrastructure that is going to be run throughout the year. Now, for example, in a stadium like hockey, where there is an astroturf, you pretty much cannot do anything else, right? But at the same time, there are ways to get about it. One of the major things that that any stadium across the world, like international stadiums, like for example, if you look at Melbourne or LA, they have the anchor tenant or anchor events that are happening on a continuous basis throughout the year, like the NBA or the NHL or the NFL is there for all these international stadiums that we see that or we aspire to become. But at the same time, they also have various types of technologies that are enabling them to make sure that these stadiums are being run 365 days in a year. We look at the stadiums in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, where out of 365 days, these stadiums are running for 300 days, right? So that is like a very quick turnaround time for each and every event. Like basically, if Taylor Swift is coming, she is going to get a period of 4 days to uh, make the stadium a concert like stadium and not a football stadium, right? So yes, I mean, in terms of the investments that are being made by government for large scale sports infrastructure, definitely one of the most important things is the legacy planning, which we tend to forget. uh, like even at the Birsa Munda International Stadium, what is happening right now? Like there's a good utilization there. After the World Cup, they've hosted the FIH Pro leagues, but these are again like these are very elite and federation driven, international federation, national federation driven fixtures, and it works because like because of broadcast and international visitors, but the city doesn't work around it. It's like the city is completely cut off, whereas the city gave it its place, right? Um, but and then of course such stadiums have like huge massive operations and maintenance costs that are really unmanageable for like individual players. So it's a structural tension basically that needs to be solved deliberately through programming and governance. And it's not something that we can just like wish it'll go away over time. And like especially for like accessibility for the community, when we talk about that, there has to be something like for example, an annual flagship event or a sponsored PSU team from Rourkela, because Rourkela has a lot of PSUs. And in Rourkela's case, there can also be something like the Sundargarh Hockey League. Like, for example, there are so many different small hockey centers that has come up across the entire of Sundargarh district, rather quite a bit of Western Rourkela. So if these are all district level stadiums or block level stadiums. So then there are children who are going there practicing on a regular basis from far flung villages, and then they can eventually they can aspire. They need to have this aspiration. Yes, we want to play it at Birsa Munda International Hockey Stadium. So the anchor event can be something around like the Sundargarh Hockey League. One of the major challenges, I think, like what we lack as a nation, it's not only Rourkela based, that we're still not a very sporting nation. Like, for example, if you look at Australia, like what sport do you play is a conversation starter. We don't ask such questions over here, right? So we will be there hopefully very soon. But yes, I mean, being outdoor again, I mean, our cities needs to be designed in ways where we can be outdoors as well because of our tropical weather. Being outdoor and playing a sport has to become one of the most important um, physical activity of daily life.
Thanks, Ananya, for kind of spotlighting this very beautifully that our infrastructures are created in isolation. When we look at London, something
Yes.
very exciting that happened with the London Olympics was that the entire Stratford area that was designed
Yes.
for the sports person got converted into housing for low-income groups after
Yes.
the entire Olympics came to over.
That's right.
The same didn't happen for something like in Rourkela. And it is like you talked about the anchor events. It's also about like London, even host a Wimbledon. But we
Yes.
would always isolate some of our infrastructure to only one event. And we will never tie it back. And also something very interesting is that the way a London or a Melbourne is designed, that each of these would again have a ripple effect on the housing, it will have a ripple effect on the transport system, or it will have a ripple effect in terms of this place-based kind of what you also experience in Boston. But
Yes.
seemingly the same, you would say that, okay, so Rourkela has an infrastructure which has the potentiality to cater to a larger kind of a chunk of its economy, but it's not doing so. And that is the sad part of it. 15 months of efforts and tying the string together is a beautiful kind of a setting that one has to really effortlessly understand. That is gets missed in a lot of our urban planning exercises.
Yes.
London curates kind of urban walks around Olympic cities just to kind of let them know that how infrastructure
Yes.
has played a very strong role in it.
Yes.
So thank you for bringing
And
some of this. Yeah.
and like for London also, like there has been like a massive urban generation for the entire of East End of London, right? Like like I was there. I was studying in London, in England from 2011 to 13. So that's the reason I was there in London for the 2012 London Olympics. And even during the London Olympics, there were like people wouldn't want to by choice go to the East End of London. Right now, it is a thriving business district with housing complexes, corporate offices, and a massive park that is open to the public. And of course, I mean, like it has become one of the best case examples. Like it has taken time. It has taken good 10, 12 years to be there, be what it is today. But the plan was there,
Yes.
definitely.
Rightfully put together, Ananya, and exciting. I see the entire panel kinds of brings into spotlight a lot of these challenges, yet opportunities on which a lot of our urban vision and planning can encash on. And I think that is something that has been very exciting about this exercise of curating the webinar, because while all of us as citizens of the country are conscious about the challenges, we are also hopeful in terms of how our urban spaces are emerging. And I'll kind of shift right now to Azad sir again. He talked about a lot of communities being misplaced and not being part of the planning, a lot of their livelihoods and skills not being represented in the urban space. Now, I would want to ask Azad sir, just if he had to flip it with 3 decades of experiential learning from Sundargarh. Can you help us if we had to look it as an opportunity? How do we kind of design for Rourkela in a way that we are able to cater to more child responsive, family supported urban services, or build more partnership with the municipalities and civil societies? Azad sir?
Yeah, see, Anushree madam told no. See, these well, when they plan, when they sit for planning the urban planning, vision, all these things, they do not include this as people. No, they neither they talk with neither they form the children's group or discuss with them, nor they call the. See, these are it's a feudal government. No, it's all the feudalistic and imperialistic attitude. No, they don't want to include these poor people, the tribal, the Dalits, the minorities, the women, the gender. So people all always say gender sensitivity, but it is not gender sensitivity. They call and they just for representation's sake, no, they call people. See, these the peripheral areas have the panchayats. See, they have panchayats. Around 252 panchayats are there. and 33% women are elected because of the reservation. Not a single woman in the entire 20 years have raised a single word about child sexual abuse, about gender injustice, about sexual of the girl children, about adolescent health, about adolescent girl problem. They never raise the issue. They say that they only sit, and the male, they control everything. They are only just sent to sit there. Similarly, in the corporacy, when about the Rourkela, when you talk about the women leadership, the political parties, the women are the member, and they come as a party worker. They are not the they have lobby. If they got chance, they get some position, but they are not the women leader. They do not raise the women issues. They do not raise the women's problem. See, Sundargarh is famous for two things. One is hockey, second is trafficking of the girls. One is hockey, second is the trafficking of girls. Girls trafficking is the highest in Sundargarh, this Chotnagpur and Santhal Pargana plateau. And see, the entire Jila Parishad's agenda, none of the entire block Panchayat Samiti agenda, the corporation agenda, in the entire 20 years, not a single bit meeting, they talked about the gender injustice or girls trafficking or child sexual abuse. These are the most neglected part. So these things should be included in the agenda, in the municipality agenda, corporation meeting agenda, in the municipality meeting agenda, in the boards meeting agenda, in the panchayat agenda, in the panchayat samiti agenda, in the Jilla Parishad, even in the assembly, even in the state assembly, they should include this part in the officially in the agenda about the violation of the child right, cases, the problem of the POXO victim, the child abandonment issues, and the gender issues. See, one girl she took birth in a family in the village. When the girl grown up, no, a boy, if he feels heat in the night, means heat means summer. In the summer, see, there is no, the temperature is very high, so they can go outside around the village, opening his shirt and roam. He is free. But if a girl gets summer problem, she cannot go out in the. See, even the girl do not feel safe even inside his own village to roam where she got birth and where she grown up. Even all of the villages are their family members. So these are the problems, no. So then the attitudinal problems, and see other thing is the bureaucracy. The IS, the OS, the bureaucracy, they know everything. They are the God. They don't want to listen anything of the common people. See, even in any of the Jilla Parishad meeting, when the collector says anything, she's right. And there, none of the women member in the Jilla Parishad, they raise any voice. So these issues should be included in the agenda of the official meetings of all level. Then only something will come. No, even the assembly, Sundargarh is the highest in the girls trafficking. In the last 30 years, I have not seen not a single question raised by any MLA in the Odisha assembly about girls trafficking. See, we are the highest. We are the highest rescuer of the newborn babies from the footpath. These issues are not included in the state assembly agenda. How to protect the girl children? How to protect the girl children from the sexual abuse cases? How to increase the reporting? See, these things are not included. The social aspect, this marginalization, these are not included, and there is no orientation also. In civil service, in the Masuri Academy, what I have feel in the last 30 years working with children, they teach how to control the people, how to show the bossism, how to feel the people backward, weak, and we are the superior. So people also do not tell anything. In any meeting, the government staff will not tell anything. The representative of the lower level, they do not tell anything. Only fear what the Babu will say, that is fine. So these are very serious issues now. And lots of people around, around 1 lakh children are suffering in the Sundargarh district because of these problems. You see, there are 2 Sakhi centers in the Sundargarh. There are 2 Sakhi centers. Sakhi center means it is the government funded one-stop center in one room. The oppressed women will get all service, legal service, medical service, police service, all these things. See, there are 10 beds in every day. Out of 10 bed, there are 8 to 9 beds are filled with POXO victim. POXO victim. You see the severity of the problem, and see the child's and these are there are a large number of things I cannot recall everything now, but see I feel pain. That's why I am sharing from my I am not very vocal in English, so I'm trying to speak in English. So, but there are lot of problems. No? There are lot of problems. So these things are should from in the IAS academy in the Missouri, they should teach all these things. They should teach what is gender justice, what is violation of child right, what is POXO victim, how they suffer, these things should be taught in the Missouri Academy, in the IPS Academy in the Hyderabad, and in all the MLAs, MPs should be given training on gender justice.
Yeah. No, thank you, sir. I think majorly while you were speaking from your heart, I could derive two lenses. One is that you talked about the government today not being actively taking citizen voices into factorization. But one of the major challenges in our urban spaces today has been that after the 73rd and 74th Amendment Acts, what we saw that our Gram Panchayat became great platform for conversations. But seemingly our urban spaces or our cities didn't get that. Primarily, I think after the JNNURM, I think there are a lot of people who can correct me. The JNNURM was one of our first urban policies in the country that brought about a citizen participation kind of lens into urban planning. And seemingly, like today we are discussing about Rourkela, and under the smart city, it was the first urban policy that talked about area-based development and factored in citizen groups to kind of interact and think through, plan ahead in terms of a city planning. I think what didn't really work out because it became a bit tokenistic, and a lot of critiques of smart cities have spoken around that lens. But what was important that it was also one of the primarily spaces where those kind of citizen engagement happened. There were different pathways in which happened. It happened in Bhubaneswar, it happened in Rourkela. The interfaces happened. And the third layer to it is what you also brought about is about strengthening of local self-government. The ward level committees today in our cities are not the way they are. And it is a problem not just for Rourkela, it is a problem for across India. Our ward level committees should be the spaces where we are talking the language that you are talking. People like you should have spaces in those kind of forums in terms of articulating what has been some of these challenges, because you can't only plan for Rourkela as a city, township, or a corporation. You have to really seeing its ripple effects around its whole place-based kind of understanding. So I think, sir, very nicely you kind of brought some of this from your heart, as I say, because
one second. See, if you'll see the plan document, of 252 Gram Panchayat, one Jilla Parishad of the last 20 years of Sundargarh district, you'll see the entire plan document. They've only mentioned about the work which include rod, cement, bricks, and sand. See, the entire plan on not a single social issues are included because the social issues, the marginalization issues are non-income generating. The construction work is the income generating, and the cost of the investment they have done through election process, and that election money, they have to derive. So that's why they don't focus on the social issues. That's why they focus only on the construction work. The entire, you see the document of the 5-year document, all document, because they have to recollect the money and double the money what they have invested. They have invested on election. So that's why all sarpanch, all Samiti member, all chairman, all business, they don't focus on these issues. This is a dangerous trend. And the people suffer because people take money from them during election. It is also social because the people they take money from the candidates during election. That's why those people also they recollect those money with interest, and the entire society is marginalizing, and the worst sufferer are the children and women.
Yes, sir.
The
Which is
male decide.
beautifully you said about how some of this financing has been very focused around infrastructures. It's about roads, it's about cement, it's about bricks, but it's not about people. And this has been one of the pressing challenges. Like I said, probably having more citizen platforms and forums can be one of the pathways in terms of, and I think people like you in the system have played a very significant role in bringing, and I think you've been kind of the torch bearer in terms of bringing some of the social challenges and issues. And it is not limited to only urban, it is also a rural phenomena, that's it. So when you kind of look into an urban versus a rural phenomena, it falls flat. You have to look at it beyond the administrative boundaries and look at some of the social issues which are beyond territories. And sir, with the constraint of time, I'll kind of move on to the next panelist, and I'll again kind of bring in Anushree into the conversation. Anushree, I think one lens that I wanted you to kind of very specifically spotlight on, that your organization has been very instrumental in driving some of the enterprises market accessed livelihood potential for women in and around the vicinities of Rourkela. If you want to kind of bring in that lens into the conversation. Anushree?
Thank you, Preeti. That's a beautiful question. Walking with the community and especially with the women, I think what we have done, whether it comes to representation, what Abulji was also saying, whether it's come to representation or whether it comes to enterprising, whether it's come to just visibility, what I often say is that women these days, they don't just need a seat at the table just because they are vulnerable. They need a seat because they bring a valuable perspective that make better decisions. And believe for too long, actually, whether it's about startup ecosystem, we'll say, whether it's about urban planning, whether it's about creating an ecosystem around women for their education, healthcare, or anything, we have designed programs for women. But this is the time, and there's the need of the hour that we start designing cities with women, where there is a full participation of women. I'll tell you the perspective of Rourkela because I was born and brought up in Rourkela. I have seen the diversity, the beautiful education system over here. We are fortunate to have educated women, self-help groups, women entrepreneurs, amazing teachers, of course, social impact advisors or social workers. We have sports person and young girls with immense potential. The question is not whether women can lead. Question is, are we creating a system or are we creating enough opportunities for them to leave? And that is the biggest question, and that is the biggest challenge for any urban cities. As we are discussing specifically about Rourkela, and for that matter, if we go to any urban or rural space in Odisha, I think women are just considered as beneficiary. Give them some freebies and give them part of leadership team as a tokenism. As Abulji was rightly saying, give them some quota so that they can sit on the table. But what happens when they're coming to the table? Are they changing the decisions? Are their voices being heard? I believe no. And that is not only Odisha, I think throughout India, that more or less the situation is similar. So I feel if we want to create that equality, that ecosystem, that entrepreneurial mindset, we need to have more and more women participation. And when I say participation, it has to be real participation. So what I have felt with years of my work, working with the women community, there is no lack of interest. I mean, women are absolutely go-getter over here. They have all the opportunity because they have actually grown up in that mindset of true cosmopolitan nature. Education was not a problem for us. Mixing with other community, because I have grown up with my friends are from Telangana, Tamil Nadu, from Andhra Pradesh, from Bihar. So we have celebrated all the languages, we have celebrated all the cultures. So that upbringing, that open mindset is always there in each and every Rourkelite. And those who are even from the outskirt of Rourkela, like the rural areas, whether you say Bisra, Lahunipada, all those areas also, they are also aligned with this philosophy of diversity. But what we are lacking is, of course, alignment of different bodies working in Rourkela. There is RMC, there is a Smart City Committee, there is, of course, there is political representation. And I will definitely emphasize over here that there is lack of political representation of Rourkela. The people who are representing Rourkela, they are not putting their heart and soul, or rather, they are not having a longer term vision for the development of each citizen. As my previous panelist was saying, it is just a 5 years phenomena from one election to another election. How I will make one or two roads before election, which will give us vote. How we will make one or how we will install one or two TULs, and that will give us vote. I mean, in 2026, if we are talking about these things for a city which has been established in 1952, and I think I'm the third generation in the city. My mom has seen the same thing which I am seeing. She has also walked in the same road, same greenery. She is studying in the same school which I am studying. Even my grandfather has seen all those things. Best of healthcare facility, best of everything. But till how long we will enjoy that legacy? Because I take the pride in the legacy. I take the pride what Rourkela has given me, the value system it has instilled in me. But like human being, we can't just survive on legacy. We continuously need to upgrade ourselves. And another problem which I have seen working with the younger population specifically, there is a tendency, because we are talking about migration happens in two lenses. I mean, migration of the marginalized community who moves out for their job, and migration of the educated people as well who are moving out of Rourkela, because nobody see Rourkela as the city of their destination. Everybody wants to say that, yes, I am born and brought up in Rourkela, I take the pride. But if you ask the question, simple question, do you see a future in the city? You want to prosper in this city? You want to involved in the planning of the city? You want to establish a industry in the city, a organized industry, of course, because Rourkela is full of unorganized industry, which is again creating a big barrier in this growth. So it has to be organized. Nobody say yes, because everybody is studying here, getting the best of everything what the city can offer, and then planning to move out. So I think we have two challenges, big challenges, to keep the aspiration of the younger population intact, where they will feel secure with their dreams in the city. At the same point of time, we have to make this city safe for the next generation. I mean, we need to upgrade the city with everything which a bigger city or a metro city is having these days, whether it's I mean, development of the digital space, whether it's giving them mentorship, because we have education system, there is NIT, there are n number of PSUs who are absolutely doing CSR activity. But what they're doing in terms of CSR activity, since there is a rainy season is there, they will plant n number of trees. course, I admire them because they're increasing the greenery. Somehow in this, because we have seen extremes in Rourkela, scorching heat, extreme rainy season, then there is like really difficult winter season as well. They are adding value to Rourkela. They are definitely putting up stitching and skill training center for women. Can we think more than that? Can we just think more than setting up a healthcare checkup camp and plantation drive and having stitching training for women? Can't we think of creating community leaders? Can't we think of creating the next generation workforce? Can't we think of creating self-help groups who will supply things from Rourkela to any of the countries, any abroad? I mean, that uh, mindset is, of course, lacking. And what I strongly feel, there is no alignment over here. Everybody is doing their job and just doing their job, but nobody is aligned. So there are a number of, at least as far as I know, there are 5, 6 different organizations working, including RMC, including political parties, including Smart City Committee, but nobody is aligned. Of course, with SAIL or Rourkela Steel Plant being the biggest name coming over here, everybody is doing, but there is conflict and there is no alignment. That's why a city which has immense potential, which has actually shown the country that what urban planning can look like, what good education can look like, is somehow dying slowly. And that is something which I'm feeling it, and I can see that when I go to other cities which had grown from scratch, which has created an ecosystem for everyone, for student, for younger professional, for women, for even for senior citizen. We have, if you come to a city of Rourkela, you will say immense senior citizens are lying. But do we have any accessibility for them? Do we have safe transport for them? Do we have roads or parks for disabled or senior citizens? No, we don't have all those things. So even for the healthcare also. So we need to have a very inclusive mindset over here, which can only happen in consultation, in alignment, and not just symbolic presence, but I think meaningful representation of each and every stakeholder.
Beautifully summed, Anushree, when you talked about consultation, alignment, and working together in terms of like what you're saying, that every city that we see today has a lifespan. It has a birth, it grows, it dies, and there is a recovery. But what we are seeing with Rourkela today is more, and I can hear it from you, that people do live on the legacy side of Rourkela today. It is on a side where the city is slowly kind of dying, and there is no aspiration to kind of building it together for the more future readiness of the city. And I also see that both Azad sir and you have been kind of trying to bring the conversation back to how people can be largely represented and not be symbolically positioned. And like I said, citizen participation is the core of how our cities can evolve. Our rural spaces are so well defined in those kind of things. Today, we would see more awareness within tribal areas, or we would see more awareness in rural villages, but we wouldn't see the same. Not many of us would know who is representing us politically in our own constituency, or who is the mayor. But if questions like that were thrown at people, they wouldn't even be, it wouldn't be possible for them to name a mayor for that sake. And so that shows how critically we have not really seen our participation instrumental. And our global cities, like you say, if you look at some of the American cities, they have these forums ready, whether it's a Detroit or if you look into the European part of it, Barcelona's, they have an instrumental, deliberative, democratic forums that allows them to participate in this conversation. And I think our cities will not grow if we don't bring back these lived experiences and conversation back. The reason it is not factoring, let's say, some of the pressing issues around social economic values is that we don't talk to the right set of people. And with this, I'll actually also shift to Siddharth, because he's somebody who comes with his urban planning lens, and a lot of time, one of the, I think also Kirti ji, he's also somebody who, he's like, I regard him immensely in terms of the mammoth of experience he brings when it comes to urban thinking in India, that a lot of our cities have been talking a different language. And that's why people have never felt connected. People have lived on the resources, but they have not really participated in building more cities in the most inclusive manner. So, Siddharth, one thing that is, I think I would want you to bring into the conversation is about the climate readiness of Rourkela. There are two rivers, the Brahmani, the Koel River. It has also escalated one of the challenges of drainage issues in the cities, air quality that we were talking about in our previous session. Would you be able to kind of bring in some of these lenses, like how can the climate resilience in terms of urban thinking can be brought to a city like Rourkela?
Right. Um, so Preeti, I think to begin with, I think to put it into context, it's important to also understand that, what are these climate challenges that, Rourkela is currently witnessing. Uh, I think we've heard it over, a few, I mean, over the other panelists talking about how heat is becoming a pressing challenge within the city. Of course, the city also, has, these changing monsoon patterns with each year, and, how it's leading to, these unprecedented situations of urban flooding each year. And Rourkela infamously is also, one of the most polluted cities, in Odisha at this point of time, which is why there is this current attention, national attention through the NCAP, on, what we can really do towards this. Um, you know, One thing that's very interesting is that a lot of cities, have, deliberately taken a lot of action, towards how, they can deal with these climate vulnerabilities. But see, as a state, Odisha has always, looked at disaster preparedness, but that has been largely, I would say, relegated to the coastal cities. So the conversation of, climate resilience or disaster preparedness is not something that Odisha as a state is unfamiliar to. But, if you look at Rourkela as an example to see, how the entire idea of climate resilience has translated into their urban planning practices, I think that is still, a very, a novel idea. Um, we don't really see a city like Rourkela, coming together with a full-fledged climate action plan uh, to understand how climate readiness can be sufficiently integrated into the development practices, urban development practices of the city. Um, like every other city, Rourkela is also expanding, and we see that this idea of the legacy of a planned city that Rourkela had, it is kind of diminishing as as you move into the urban fringes. And even within the planned city, these particular informal areas, uh, the they are subjected to situations of urban flooding each year, and even the quality of infrastructure, the quality of housing, it kind of exacerbates situations of urban heat as well. Now, what has been the approach largely, of course, from a planning and from a policy perspective, there is still a long way to go. But even from an infrastructure perspective, I mean, has Rourkela, really started looking at, other opportunities such as nature-based solutions is something that, one needs to start thinking about. See, the typical approach, largely towards, urban flooding and heat stress, has, you know, mostly been responsive. And even, there has been this extensive reliance on, engineered solutions. But if one was to look at the natural resources that Rourkela has, it has these two rivers. It has had a precedent of using of urban greenery at a mass scale. If you look at the planned part of the city, uh, but uh, are we really are we really leveraging, these urban assets as this infrastructure? And can we really look at a model of development in Rourkela where, if there is future infrastructure which is going to be coming up, can it be intertwined with, these existing natural resources, uh, to create a more balanced form of development? I think that needs to be better understood. Uh, I think having that kind of a more balanced and comprehensive approach can, for example, just looking at how the entire river can be revisited as an ecological asset can definitely help address some of the larger urban flooding challenges that Rourkela has. And even if one was to look at NBS through greening, it definitely has a lot of potential to at least address some of the pollution challenges and the heat stress challenges that Rourkela is facing. So I think it's there is a overall policy approach that is needed, but also, looking at, how, innovation such as NBS can kind of come into this idea of climate resilience.
Yeah, beautifully kind of brought together, Siddharth. And I'm also kind of mindful of the time in the sense. And I would like to kind of close this session with responses from Ananya. Uh, there are a couple of questions that I have, Marcus, for you, Ananya, is to understand engaging more in terms of communities, access to sporting infrastructures, or kind of engaging in building infrastructure that are so aligned at a neighborhood level, and also trying to position Rourkela more like a national and international sports city. I think it has to shift its own prescriptive narrative from an industrial city into becoming more around sports and recreation infrastructure. And probably that'll be a pretty meaningful way of rebranding the city that we can look at. So I would kind of push the conversation back. And I think the earlier panelists have also spotlighted on some of these, Ananya. Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Right. So I would rather actually build on what Siddharth was saying, because it's something that directly connects with what we are doing as well. So we are also like as a part of the entire Olympic bid for India. What we are working on is creating the vision document for Ahmedabad, and like you understand, like it is also a very new city. At the same time, it's an old city, and and there is a lot of prosperity in Ahmedabad, which is also quite visible in Rourkela as well. What our major challenge in that project has become is making the city a walkable, livable, um, uh, and then very well connected by public transport. And these are the most important components of putting the bid together, the Olympic bid together to the IOC, right? And making sure that making sure of last mile connectivity. Now, what has happened with Ahmedabad is it is a very prosperous city. Everybody has a car. Though the public transport, and we're talking massively about mobility and these last mile connectivity options, but all of these things are pretty much going to fall flat once the event is over, because we will be using the public transport for the Olympics because we are being forced to use it, because there will not be any parking inside the stadiums, right? So there has to be a behavioral change, is what, as a like collectively, that we all need to work towards, of living a more active lifestyle. First thing. Um, um, the other thing is the green cover, right? The pattern we keep running into is that with all these fast growing in cities, nature and green cover, it just gets treated as something that we will plug back in later on, once the city has grown. But by the time the city grows, the green cover areas are all gone. right? And therefore it is, though Rourkela is actually in a good position over here. It has been able to retain meaningfully a lot of green cover compared to many other industrial cities. But like it shouldn't be something like an afterthought. It should be a permanent asset that needs to be planned at this stage when we are, for example, when we're creating a vision document for the city. We're pretty much determining the city's future. So like it's a decision, and also like considering that like Rourkela has like a lot of sports infrastructure, housing, and there's an industrial expansion, sustainable construction practices, and green corridor protection. These are deliberate policy choices that we need to make at this point of time. Also, when we look at this is all like I am aware of these things because I am working extensively across this Olympic bid book and Ahmedabad's preparation, is the amount of money that a city spends on conducting large scale events, right? Like there's a for the G20 summit that happened in India last year in Delhi and also many places, some 300 crores budget for city beautification purposes. I mean, it could have just been planned better. Or even when Donald Trump visited Ahmedabad in 2020 during COVID, there was a 500 crore spend on city beautification aspects. Whereas these things should be a city which is walkable. There is greenery, there is less of concrete. And like Rourkela has also spent a lot of money for the FIH World Cup for city beautification, but in the process has also forgotten about the nature. Yeah. So and therefore, like in my opinion, like more than these large buildings that we build, it is very important that we focus on the grassroots aspect of it, because elite athlete, though, like you'll only find only a handful of people who are becoming elite athletes who will be playing in these massive stadiums. What is important is to make sure that we create safer places for girls, especially safer spaces to play, just play any sport. It can be any sport. And like for example, we for the Ahmedabad project, we are taking our inspiration from Imagine Boston 2030. I'm sure, Preeti, you must have seen that document, and they talk about these emerald ribbons. These are nothing but just like connected parks and playing spaces, safe spaces for everybody to just come and spend their time being active. And that is how I believe, like when you talk about health, hygiene, all of these things can be taken care of at these spaces during a formative years itself.
Thanks, Ananya, for this insights. I think with this, we kind of come to a closure of the session too. But there are questions in the note. I think one question that has come up for Azad sir has been the curiosity of people whether Odisha does have a women and child development department. To the question, the answer is yes. And what are some of the statutory bodies in place? Azad sir, if you can respond to the question that has come together on this, because I see the audience is baffled in terms of the numbers you brought in, and that could have triggered some response. So,
Yes. See, Odisha has WCD department. They have a specialized adoption agency scheme under ICPS that is only for 10 babies. Only for 10 babies. The number of babies are much more than 10. One thing. Second, what question they asked regarding the?
So also on the data side of it, one of the question that has come from audience is to understand that when you spoke about that some of the missing data, which is rightfully in terms of these nuances.
Yes, they have a CARA. We have a Government of India single CARA net. See www.cara.nic.in. You'll go to that site. You'll open the Sundargarh district number of children in the list of Kara for adoption, the Amanjuyum. You'll get all the data. It is all data. See, all data I just told from the looking at the register. I am not told about the back data. We are working since 2000. We have also data from 2000 to 2016, and because those time missionaries of charities were keeping those children. So I have not included those data. I have only included data those data that we have rescued and we have recorded. It is in the system of the government of India website. So it is all true and it will be much higher. I have only told those which I know, which we have intervened. It is a 1744 village. There are large number of cases which are unreported. And the largest unreported, so we do not have those data. If you include those data, then it will go much higher.
Yeah. No, thanks for that response, Azad sir. And I think another question that has come up from the audience has been around while we are talking about Rourkela as an industrial township versus the civil lines versus the peripheral development, how do we create more synergies? And I'll push this question to Anushree and say that how, and because you brought in the element about isolation in institutional agencies, multitude of agencies not doing the talking to each other, how has that impacted? So Anushree would love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think since we are discussing about Rourkela in 2036, if I'm sitting in 2036 and if I want to name Rourkela, I don't want to remember it as a steel city. I want to remember it as as India's most inclusive industrial city. And for that, there are a couple of things we need to do. First thing is like retaining the talent instead of exporting it. Then it should be a city that lead with people, not with infrastructure. And at the same time, I think we need to build a culture of innovation. And at the same point of time, I believe until unless we make every citizen a stakeholder, all our planning, all our vision will be just on pen and paper that can't be percolated on ground. So we have to make every citizen a stakeholder, maybe a participatory governance. We need to have citizen planning forum, digital feedback system, maybe youth and women's council, where they can be actively involved and in all the development activities, whether it's planning, whether it's implementation, which will bring the city into a faster, smarter, and more accountable phase of growth. So, what I believe, citizens can't be just a spectator; they can be co-creator instead of just being spectators. And um, I think instead of blaming our representative or lack of coordination or participation, we need to create a use Rourkela first kind of moment where the industry, those who are working or flourishing in Rourkela, the institutions which are catering to Rourkela, they have to first focus on uh, Rourkela's talent and the betterment of Rourkela. So it has to be a conscious commitment to source locally whenever possible, then mentor local startups, procure from local entrepreneurs, open their expertise to student, and that can only happen if there is coordinated leadership. So today, municipal corporation, Rourkela Development Authority, state government, industry, academic associations, and everything working in parallel, and we need to bring that parallel to partnership, and then only urban transformation can happen when every citizen, along with the institution, champion actively in the long term vision. And long-term vision, of course, that has to be one shared vision, one shared accountability framework, and of course, one shared table. So that is, I think, the leadership Rourkela deserves.
Yeah, thanks, Anushree, for putting it together. And for Ananya, I have just one quick question. Two things that Rourkela should do to be future ready. 2036, how do we see Rourkela? And glad to hear. I think it'll also bring in a lot of lenses because Kirti ji is from Ahmedabad, and you're talking about how the planning around the city has been emerging. But two things that Rourkela can learn from some of the good practices within the country, outside the country, and really build itself. I think what Anushree was also trying to harp on was the retention of talent. People find it good for academics, but they don't find it for staying and living out of it. So there's a lack of livelihood opportunity that can flourish for a lot of youngsters in the city. Ananya?
Yes. I mean, I cannot immediately come up with like two great ideas, but one thing that I can definitely talk about is the volunteerism. You know, like that we, as Anushree also mentioned, that we need to start becoming stakeholders. And one of the best ways to becoming a stakeholder is volunteerism, where you have a say, you are working towards something that you wish to also attain in somewhere in the near future. And like for especially with sports, the you know, like the trajectory of sports and has also become so vast over the past few years, and also with Orissa government working taking deliberate steps of making sure that Orissa goes up in the ladder in the sports section as well, sports industry as well. There, I believe like one of the things that can be taken from best practices across the world is all these cities that has hosted Commonwealth Games or Olympic Games or various World Cups, is they came up with the volunteer workforce. And this volunteer workforce that did not just only sustain the games, but also for various other activities across the city. And it can be so many various other types of events. It can be sports events, it can be tourism events, it can be MICE events, and building the backbone of the state.
Yeah, thank you, Ananya, and pleasure to all the panelists. I would just now kind of shift it to Kirti ji if he has any concluding remarks as we are closer to the closing of this entire webinar. If there are any thoughts, Kirti ji, you would like to bring together?
Uh, first, first thing is to thank everyone, I think, profusely. I think it's a very rich, very enriching, I think, meeting. And I think, some remarkably interesting ideas have come up, and we will have to kind of sit down and kind of put them together. I essentially, I think when this idea stuck to me, there was lots of time, which is not there now. But I had, in fact, I had one thing for each one of the panelists. So I'm not going to do that, but I think I'm certainly going to do it for two people. One is for Ananya ji. And I'm not sure in terms of what is the conflict of interest involved in what I'm suggesting. But I would really want to invite Ananya ji to organize 5 webinars on the way Ahmedabad is preparing for, of course, the Commonwealth and the dream of Olympic. I was very surprised, and I'm very happy to hear that you are part of the vision document.
Thank you, sir.
The reason I'm saying this is this. There are some very fundamental questions need to be asked. There is a school of thought which thinks that these events are imposed on a city, and city pay a very big price. It's a view. I
It's true,
also,
sir.
it's a view that I have personally speaking. Like say, for instance, many years ago, many years ago, I used to run with Kartikeya Sarabhai a magazine 35 years ago called Ahmedabad, the first city development magazine, first ever. And it was called Ahmedabad, Inside Ahmedabad. And one of the things I think that came up was this, that, and Ahmedabad is a large number of big institutions. IIM and IP, the physical laboratory, and I think all kind of institutions.
Sept also.
So all that. I was a student there, and I think someone said they are essentially a burden on the city. They are really given very little back to the city, and there's a fair amount of questioning. Similarly, I personally feel there's a good amount of questioning, including if this investment was not going into this large infrastructure and stadium, and say for instance, there's a way of putting that in terms of improving the infrastructure at the lower level where smaller people could participate, wouldn't city change dramatically in terms of health, in terms of the vision for the city, vision for the youth and whatnot. Now, I know maybe your company may not allow you to do that, but I would very much want to invite you to come and saying, please run 5 webinars on this platform. And we were not for, we're not against, because what is happening is this, that even though such a large thing is happening, such a large investment is happening, nothing is in the public domain. There's very little, whatever newspaper prints. Otherwise, there's hardly anything. There is no debate on how things are going. So my first request is, if you agree, I will pursue with this. Please do.
Yes, sir.
5
Sure, sir.
terrific, absolutely stunning. That's what. And the second thing is Siddharth Bhai. Can I see you? Have you gone?
I think Siddharth had to drop off because he had some internet
Okay.
issues.
Okay. If the thing for Siddharth was this, that Preeti ji, we did 5 webinars on Jaga Mission.
Yeah.
5. And one of the partners was United Nations. UN Habitat was a partner. The Cities Alliance was a partner. Government of India was a partner when we did this 5 webinars on Jaga Mission. And I go on singing its song all the time. I wanted to understand Jaga Mission in the context of Rourkela city. How has it worked? What is it doing? Is it really kind of meeting its promise? Because it's one thing to talk, I think, larger schematic things, and I think, the broader vision and perspective. And there's some terrific ideas. But this, in terms of, and because I heard him say that the Rourkela has 132 slum pockets or whatever. What has happened? And I think, and Abdul Saab, I think, I wanted to go to him and say, look, why don't you really go and ask, this Jaga Mission people, but why are you not looking at this? You're supposed to. So what I was trying to kind of say was this, that, but Siddharth is not there, and I think, I want to get in touch with him at some point of time. I would really want to understand Jaga Mission in the context of Rourkela city itself.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things that I was very keen. But if Ananya ji, if you want to think about this, saying yes or no, but if you said yes, I'm going to catch you on this. And no, the reason is this will be absolutely meaningful.
Yeah.
If you have a deep understanding of the subject, you've experienced, you've done this, and you involve this whole process. Is it
Thank you,
possible?
sir. I will be very privileged to be a part of a webinar
No,
like
not part of it. I'm saying you organize this.
Sure.
Will provide you platform, and Preeti ji will be part of it because she's part of INHAF.
Perfect.
But let us do it. Let's do
Sure,
it.
sure.
That will be the biggest take home from this particular event today, to get to meet you and to think about this event. Because it's a big thing that is happening. Here
That's
you're
right.
talking about Commonwealth, you're talking about Olympic, you're talking about 1936, and you're selling dreams, day in, day out. And I think, lots of things are happening. So if we could unravel this, and if you could bring it out, and I think, it will be very useful. So let us
Absolutely.
just work it out, and I'll contact you, and we will plan this together. So
Sure, sure.
otherwise, thank you very much, Ananya ji. Terrific. Uh, Learn so much. And Abdul Saab, you are absolutely stunning, and I don't regret it for a second that you didn't speak in Hindi, because you speak from heart, and heart doesn't have a language, whether it is English or Hindi. It has come from within, and it was absolutely stunning. And it's very painful to hear mothers throwing, I think, a child in the toilet bath and flushing it. It's a tragedy of unbelievable proportion. It doesn't matter where you are, how much you've grown, how much you've developed. It's a terrible thing to happen. And I think you bring it out so beautifully. The whole aspect of urban rural sort of disconnect, the whole aspect of looking at urbanization in the context of what are they doing to cities, looking at cities in terms of their obligation to villages. All of this you brought out so beautifully. So thank you very much. I'm going to kind of catch hold of you some other time to do something else. So I'm going to kind of have your address and phone number with me. But you have been absolutely terrific. So, Preeti ji, many thanks. What a group you put together, and it was very enlivening. It's very great learning today. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
And I would take this thing to thank Anushree, Azad sir, Siddharth, and Ananya, all of the panelists who came together. And the story was not urban, it was how people can be there. And some of you have brought in so many differential lenses. But the format that INHAF naturally follows is that some of these webinars take the format of a knowledge product. And potentially, the aspiration with this is also something like that all of these city experiences. So even while we are drafting some of these learnings and insights, we can potentially connect with you and can hear your versions. We'll take in your codes, we'll use some of your learning. It'll be like a citizen perspective to Odisha's urban vision and how people are really feeling about this entire experience. So thank you to all the panelists, to Kirti ji, to Dr. Bhuma ji, and my very own Disha. She has always been that support system in terms of putting all of this together. And like this Curil Anushree was talking about, Disha has been that very instrumental. And Jesna, thank you for doing it on the social media and the promising dissemination that you do. So
I'm sorry I forget to thank Jesna. वो घर की बच्ची है, but I think I'm very sorry. Jesna, thank you. Well, she's an amazing girl. I think all I need to do is to really ring up and say this has to happen. It will happen. And she never has said no. She never says not doable. She never say you are unreasonable. She has been absolutely terrific. So thank you very much.
yeah,
Yes, sir.
you.
And thank you everyone.
yeah.
अब्दुल साहब, आप तो इतिहास इतिहास बना रहे हैं. वेरी वेरी गुड. ठीक है. थैंक यू सर. वेरी नाइस. Very nice to hear you. Thank you.
Yeah.
What an amazing presentation. Thank you. Thank you, Anushree ji. We'll catch up with you at some point of time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.